A wounded puppy limped up to our fire station, carrying a shattered phone in his mouth. He collapsed on the front steps, panting hard, bleeding from one paw. His coat was matted with soot and river muck. Sable-colored German Shepherd, maybe 6 or 7 months old. But his eyes, wide open, focused, like he hadn't come to be rescued, like he was here to rescue someone else. I was just stepping outside for air, standard protocol between runs, and froze when I saw him. For a split second, I thought I was hallucinating. A dog, limping through the heat haze, dragging a half-dead phone like it was the only thing left in the world. I dropped my drink and ran to him. He didn't bark, didn't growl, just laid down at my feet and looked up at me, eyes burning through exhaustion. The phone, cracked and soaked, was clenched tight between his teeth. He wouldn't let go. "Hey," I whispered, crouching low. "What do you have there, buddy?" I reached for it gently. That's when he growled. Not like a threat, like a warning. He didn't want to give it up, not until we understood. I called back into the bay. "Guys, I need you out here. Now." Mason and Hill came running. Mason dropped to one knee beside me. "What the hell is this?" "He brought us something," I said, "and he won't let go." We worked slow, carefully. Hill grabbed a towel and wrapped it around the dog, trying to calm him. The second Mason finally got the phone out of his mouth fast, the dog exhaled like he'd just passed a torch. The phone was almost dead, screen shattered, but still on. Mason tapped it, glitchy, fried. Then, buzz, one alert, one message. The screen flickered, half covered in spiderweb cracks, but we could read it. "Help us, underfloor." "Can't." The rest was scrambled static. We looked at each other. "This isn't a prank," Hill said. "No," I answered. "This pup came from somewhere." We moved fast, got the dog onto a padded mat inside. Rachel, our on-call medic, cleaned his paws, checked his vitals. She'd worked with search and rescue dogs before. She knelt beside him, brushing grit out of his fur. "He's dehydrated," she said, "but he's got drive. Whatever he saw, he came back for it." Meanwhile, Mason tracked the phone's last GPS ping. "Warehouse district," he muttered. "Just outside the old river mill. That's 5 blocks from here." I turned to Ghost. That's what Hill had started calling him, and said, "You ran 5 blocks bleeding to bring us a message?" The pup wagged his tail. Once. Weak, but certain. We rolled out. No sirens. No noise. Just 3 trucks, an empty industrial zone, and one signal from a dying phone a dog had carried like a lifeline. Ghost stayed in the truck with Rachel, eyes fixed out the window, nose twitching at every turn like he knew we were close. And when we slowed by a collapsed metal gate, his body tensed. We were here, but none of us were ready for what he was about to show us. The warehouse looked like 100 others in Detroit. Rusted panels, shattered windows, and a heavy chain looped through the front gate that hadn't moved in years. But Ghost began to whine the second we pulled up. He stood in the back of the rig, tail stiff, one paw raised, eyes locked on the building like he could see through the metal. We jumped the fence. The last GPS ping matched the location to the foot. Hill pulled up the coordinates again. "Signal's cold now," he muttered. "Phone's probably dead." Mason knelt near the busted gate. Dog didn't bring us a ghost trail. He brought us here for a reason. We scanned the perimeter. No signs of forced entry, no lights, no smoke, just the low hum of distant freeway noise and the chirp of summer insects. Then Ghost leapt from the truck bed. Rachel swore. He shouldn't be moving, but he didn't care. He landed hard, stumbled once, and limped straight toward a warped side door near the back of the warehouse. One we hadn't even noticed. Mason looked at me. "That's not instinct. That's memory." We followed him in. The inside was even worse than we expected. Sagging beams, broken pallets, dust and soot thick enough to choke on. Old machinery still sat in the corners, rusted stiff and useless. Ghost weaved between debris like he'd been here before. He didn't hesitate. He led. He took us toward the back, near what looked like an old loading dock, and stopped, dead center of a rotting floor. He pawed once, then twice, then began to scratch. Frantic, desperate. We ran over. I dropped to my knees and began tearing at the boards. Dry rot gave way fast. Mason pulled aside a rusted sheet of aluminum that had been nailed over something. Underneath, darkness, a crawl space. Then a sound, a cough. Rachel shoved her flashlight forward. The beam cut through dust and settled on the shape of a woman, mid-30s, soot-covered, face pale and slick with sweat. She was curled over something, a child, her body shielding his. She looked up, blinking into the light. "He brought you," she rasped. We didn't stop to ask questions. Mason radioed for medics. I crawled into the space and helped lift the boy, 6 years old, light burns, barely conscious. Rachel called vitals, wrapped the boy in an emergency blanket, passed him to Hill. Then we went for the woman. She could barely stand. The floor collapsed, she whispered. I sent Finn to find help. It hit me like a hammer. Finn? She nodded weakly. Our dog. He ran when the fire started. I thought he was gone. I turned back to the entrance. Ghost was standing there, covered in ash, staring. I whispered it without meaning to. Finn? His ears perked. Then he stepped forward, limping, shaking, but alive, and home. The second we pulled the woman from the crawl space, the floor behind her groaned. Wood snapped. Mason grabbed her arm just as the beam above cracked and dropped a full panel of rusted metal. It slammed into the ground where she'd been lying seconds before. Move, I shouted, dragging her toward the exit. Dust choked the air. Rachel had the boy pressed against her chest, his head limp, arms dangling. Ghost, no Finn, was still by the door, growling low at something we couldn't see. And then we heard it, a low, rising hiss, gas. Somewhere under that floor, a line had ruptured. Mason swore and turned on his heel. We need to clear, now! Finn darted ahead, not out the way we came, but down the narrow hallway to the side. No, wait, I called, but he didn't look back. He rounded the corner fast, disappearing into shadow. I felt my gut drop. He wasn't escaping, he was leading. I shifted the woman's weight on my shoulder. Follow him. Trust the dog. Rachel didn't hesitate. She ran. I hoisted the woman and followed, Mason at my heels. The hallway was narrow, walls crumbling. At the far end, a broken service door hung open. Finn waited beside it, tail stiff, barking once, sharp and commanding. That bark saved us. We burst through the door, just as the blast tore through the warehouse. It didn't explode in fire. It was a concussive shockwave, wood and dust and the thunderclap of a decade-old structure collapsing in on itself. We hit the ground. Rachel covered the boy. I shielded the woman, and Finn, he was gone again. The smoke cleared just enough for me to see him, across the lot, limping through the rubble, circling back. One ear bloodied, but his eyes still locked on us. He didn't run from the explosion. He made sure we got out before it hit. Finn staggered toward us, barely on his feet. I ran to him, scooped him up. He didn't fight it, didn't even flinch. He just rested his head on my chest and let out the slowest, quietest exhale I've ever felt from a living thing. Like he knew, like his job was done. But it wasn't, not yet. Sirens were coming. Backup, ambulance, news. But none of them saw what I saw. A stray, wounded puppy who crossed half a city bleeding to carry into a firehouse because someone told him to run. And he remembered. He didn't forget. Not the message, not the family, not the mission. The medics took over the moment we hit the street. The woman was drifting in and out, burns on her arms, dehydration, signs of smoke inhalation. The boy, maybe 6 or 7, was unconscious but stable. Rachel stayed with him the whole time, pressing a damp cloth to his forehead, whispering soft reassurances like he could still hear her. And Finn, he was lying beside me on the back of the rig, wrapped in a foil blanket. His chest was rising slow, his front legs trembling from overexertion. But his eyes were open, focused, still watching everything like he was waiting to make sure the job was really finished. You saved 2 lives today, buddy, I whispered. He blinked once. No wag, no sound, just calm. But I could feel it, the exhaustion behind his stillness, the ache behind the control. Then the woman suddenly sat up on the stretcher, eyes wide. Finn, where is he? She rasped. I stood and waved her over. She tried to get up, but collapsed again, her knees buckling. I caught her. He's okay, I said. He brought us the phone. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I told him when the fire started, I said, go, get help. I helped her kneel beside Finn. She placed her hand on his head, shaking. I didn't think he'd come back. Finn didn't move. He didn't have to. That touch, that voice, it was all he needed to hear. He'd done it. He'd brought the only thing that could save them, a shattered phone, soaked with river water and ash, still clinging to a single message and a GPS signal. And he'd carried it with everything he had left. Later, back at the station, after the scene was cleared and statements were filed, Mason stood beside me watching Finn sleep beneath a heat lamp in the medic bay. I've worked 20 years in this job, he said. I've pulled people from buildings, from rivers, from twisted steel, but I've never seen anything like that. Hill came in with a tray, water, bandages, a can of food. He doesn't need a rescue anymore, he said, crouching beside Finn. He is one. We all went quiet, because it was true. There was something about the way he looked at you, not like a dog, like someone who'd already seen the end and chose to fight anyway. Rachel stepped in from the hallway holding a printed form. "Hey," she said, "they ran his chip." I turned. "Nothing?" I asked. She shook her head. "No chip, no ID, no owner on file, just a dog with a name." I looked at her. "How do you know his name?" She smiled faintly. "Because when we scanned the phone again, his photo was the lock screen, and under it," she handed me the phone. There, under a picture of Finn as a smaller pup, was the name written in all caps. Finn. Find help. I swallowed hard. He hadn't just remembered. He'd been told what to do, and he obeyed through fire, glass, streets, and silence, because someone once loved him enough to trust him, and he loved them enough to come back. The next morning, the fire station felt different, quieter, heavier, like we'd all witnessed something too big to name. The kind of moment that doesn't leave smoke or ash behind, but leaves you changed. Finn was still resting on a blanket in the corner of the medic bay. His eyes would open every now and then, scanning the room, locking on each of us like he was counting heads, making sure we were all still here. The local news had already picked up the story. Stray hero dog alerts firefighters with broken phone. They didn't even get it all right, but they didn't need to. The part that mattered was clear. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a messenger. By noon, visitors started showing up. First came the woman from the rescue shelter down the road. She'd seen the story and wanted to meet him. She offered to help with placement, maybe foster care. But when she saw the way Finn lifted his head when Lily, one of our junior cadets, entered the room, she just smiled and backed away. "You're not giving him up," she said. "He already picked you." Then came the family, the woman and the little boy. Both released that morning from the hospital against every recommendation because they couldn't rest until they saw him again. The boy stepped forward first, arms stiff, eyes wide. His face was pale, bandaged at the hairline. But when Finn saw him, something in that dog's whole body changed. His ears perked, his nose twitched, and then he tried to stand. He didn't make it. His legs buckled under him, but the boy was already there, dropping to his knees and wrapping both arms around his neck. He didn't say anything. He just held him. And Finn let out a sound we hadn't heard before, a whimper. Soft, fragile, like he was finally allowing himself to be held. The mother joined them. She rested her hand on Finn's back and whispered something only he could hear. Then she looked up at me. "Is he staying here?" I nodded. "Unless you want him back." She smiled, a real one. "No," she said. "He's yours now. He made his choice. He brought us to you." I wasn't sure what to say, because it wasn't just that we had saved him. He had pulled us into something bigger than duty or protocol. He reminded us why we put the uniform on. Finn didn't wait to be found. He found us. That night, as the sun dipped low and golden light stretched across the station floor, Hill took a marker and wrote one word on the whiteboard in the bay: rescuer. Below it, he taped the lock screen photo from the phone, the one with Finn's name, and beneath that, in permanent ink, he didn't bark, he didn't beg, he brought help. By the end of the week, the city knew his name. Finn's photo was everywhere. On the news, on local flyers, in front of the fire station on a makeshift sign someone taped to the fence. "Thank you, Hero Dog." But inside the station, it wasn't about headlines. It was about routine. Real care. Finn still limped when he walked. His paws were wrapped in gauze, and we kept him on a soft mat near the lockers, where he could watch everything: the trucks, the drills, the people coming and going. He didn't need to be told where to sit. He chose the spot with the best line of sight. Always alert, always ready. Lily, our youngest cadet, started coming in early. She'd bring him small slices of banana, he liked them more than the kibble, and she'd read aloud from her EMT manual like he was studying with her, and maybe he was. Because every time the emergency tones rang out, Finn would lift his head and stare at the gear, never moved, just stared, like he knew what those sirens meant. He remembered. One afternoon, just before shift change, the chief walked in holding a small box. "I need everyone in the bay." We gathered around, wiping hands on pants, dusting off ash. The chief looked down at Finn, who was sitting beside Lily, ears perked. He opened the box. Inside, a polished silver tag, not the usual department kind. This one was engraved with only 2 words: Honorary Rescue Unit. He knelt, clipped it to Finn's new collar, bright red, custom-stitched with his name. Finn didn't move, but the room did. Every single firefighter went silent. Some cleared their throats, a few looked away. Because it wasn't just ceremony, it was truth. He earned it. Afterward, I found Lily in the corner, petting Finn's side. "He's not a stray anymore," she whispered. "No," I said. "He never was." Later that night, we took him for a short walk, just around the block, slow and easy. Mason walked on one side, Hill on the other, Lily up front with the leash, me behind, and Finn in the center. At one point, he paused near a utility pole, just stood there, staring at a flyer taped to it. It was the photo from the phone, him as a younger pup, sitting on a porch with the boy he'd once lived with, and beside it in black marker, "He found help." Finn sniffed it once, then turned and walked on, because he didn't need a reminder of where he came from. He was focused on where he was going. The next call came on a Tuesday, late afternoon. Clear skies, residential block on the east side, carbon monoxide alarm triggered, no answer at the door, neighbors worried. Standard welfare check. We geared up, rolled out with lights but no sirens. Finn was waiting at the station, watching from the bay doors as always. But as we pulled out, he paced. 3 steps forward, 3 back. Nose twitching, body tense. Rachel stayed behind to monitor him. But when we got back an hour later, she met me at the door. "He's not right," she said. "He's agitated, like he knows something's coming." I walked inside. Finn saw me and ran over, not with a limp, but with purpose. He barked. Once, loud and sharp, then grabbed my jacket sleeve and tugged. "What is it, bud?" He tugged again, harder this time. Hill came in behind me. "You think he's trying to tell us something?" Before I could answer, tones rang out again. Second call. Different location. Structure instability. Collapsing floor reported during renovation. Possible entrapment. Same block as the earlier call. Hill looked at Finn. "No way that's coincidence." We moved. Fast. This time we brought Finn. Chief gave a nod. "Keep him on leash. If he reacts, follow." At the site, an old craftsman-style house leaned to one side. Floorboards inside sagged like broken ribs. A man had gone in earlier to check wiring. Never came back out. We fanned out. No signs of life at first. Then Finn pulled. Not a tug. A full-body lunge. He dragged me toward the side of the house, nose down, tail stiff. Whining now. "Something's under there," Rachel said. We crouched by a crawlspace vent. Finn barked again, sharper than before. I grabbed the flashlight and shone it under. There. A boot. Then movement. We crawled in, pulled the man out, barely conscious, gray-skinned, clutching his chest. "Gas leak," Rachel said. "He's lucky to be breathing." No, he was lucky Finn was breathing. Back at the station, like after the medics rolled out, we sat in the bay in silence. Finn lay beside me, head resting on my boot. "He knew," Hill said quietly. "Before the tones, before the call, he knew." "He's not a mascot," Mason added. "He's part of the damn team." I looked down at him. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the exit again, the street, waiting for the next thing. Because that's who Finn had become. Not just a rescue, a responder. That Friday, something shifted. We were hosting a school tour, 33rd graders in bright yellow safety vests, wide-eyed and buzzing like a hive. We'd clean the trucks, prep the gear displays, rehearse the usual safety speeches, but none of it mattered once they saw Finn. It started with one kid, small, quiet, lagging behind the group. His name was Jonah. No jacket, even though the morning was chilly, shoulders hunched. His teacher whispered to me that he hadn't spoken much in weeks. Something about a fire last month, lost a pet, wouldn't talk about it. Jonah walked straight past the trucks, straight past the gear, and knelt beside Finn. He didn't say anything, just touched his fur. Finn didn't move, but his eyes flicked to Jonah's hand, then to his face, and he let out a slow, low exhale. I've never seen a dog breathe like that, like he was matching someone's pain, not fixing it, not pushing it, just being with it. The other kids gathered, some asked questions, some wanted selfies, but Jonah stayed where he was, hand resting on Finn's side, head tilted like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Then, quietly, he spoke. His name's Finn. The whole room stopped. Even the teacher teared up. "How did you know?" I asked gently. Jonah shrugged. "He told me." We didn't press it, because sometimes healing doesn't come from talking. It comes from presence. After the group left, I found Finn back in the corner of the bay, lying beside Lily's backpack. He was chewing gently on a torn tennis ball, content but alert. I sat beside him. You're changing people, you know that? He glanced at me, blinked. You're not just here for us. You're here for them. That evening, Chief called a meeting, said he wanted to officially recognize Finn's role with the department, not just as a mascot or a therapy companion, but as part of the actual response team. He's earned it, he said, not just by what he did once, but what he keeps doing. The vote was unanimous. Finn would be entered into the city's canine database, classified as a community support and response asset. No badge, no uniform, but a standing spot in every truck roster, and the right to go where he was needed. No questions, no hesitation. Later that night, Hill taped something new to the bay wall beside Finn's whiteboard. A printed sign, "Not all heroes wear boots," underneath a paw print, black ink, pressed carefully on a sheet of paper. Finn's, marked like it mattered, because it did. The next emergency call didn't come through dispatch. It came through the door. A woman burst into the station just after noon, clutching a tablet in one hand and shaking so badly she could barely speak. Rachel helped her to a seat. I brought water. She tried to explain, but couldn't get the words out. Then she handed me the tablet. "Look," she whispered. It was footage. Security cam, time-stamped just 30 minutes earlier. A grainy clip of an alley 3 blocks from us, narrow, boxed in by dumpsters. A boy, no older than 9, running, tripping, disappearing behind a stack of pallets. Seconds later, a man appeared in the frame. Bigger, moving faster. Then the video cut. The woman looked at me. "That's my son. He hasn't come home. I called the police, but they said they'd file a report. Later." I didn't hesitate. "Suit up," I barked to the team. Mason grabbed the gear. Hill was already pulling up satellite maps of the alley. Rachel stayed with the mother. And Finn, he was already on his feet before I finished speaking. He knew. He always knew. We reached the alley in under 4 minutes. Hot air, trash smell, tight walls. Mason and Hill took the sides, sweeping corners, calling out the boy's name. Nothing. Then Finn growled, deep, from his chest. He darted left toward a stack of cracked pallets leaning against a rusted back door. He sniffed once, then started clawing at the wood. Barked again. Hill yanked the pallets aside. Behind them, a hidden hatch, bolted shut. We didn't wait for keys. I took the Halligan bar, drove it under the edge, and popped the thing like a can lid. Cold air rushed out, metallic and stale. We dropped into the dark. Basement. Empty shelves, concrete floor, rows of moldy bins. But in the corner, under a shelf, something moved. "Got him!" Mason shouted. The boy was curled up, knees tucked to his chest, eyes wide with terror. No wounds, no blood, but frozen. "Easy, buddy," I said, kneeling. "You're safe now." He didn't answer, but when Finn appeared beside me, nose twitching, ears forward, the boy flinched, then blinked, and reached, wrapped his arms around Finn's neck, and held on like he'd been waiting for him. Not for us, for him. We carried him out. His mother collapsed when she saw him. I turned away to give them space and saw Finn, standing at the edge of the street, watching the boy with that same unreadable calm he always had. Mason came up beside me. "You think he just smells fear?" he asked. "No," I said. "I think he remembers it." That night, after the kid was home safe and the city calmed down, we sat around the kitchen table at the station. Nobody said much. Hill finally broke the silence. "He's not just finding people," he said. "He's finding the ones no one else knows are missing." I looked at Finn, still, quiet, but not at rest, because he was waiting for whatever came next. The 10th call came without a phone, no text, no alarm, no mother banging on the station door, just Finn. It was 5:03 p.m. The sun was slanting low, casting long shadows across the bay. I was cleaning gear, Mason was rewrapping hose, and Lily was sitting cross-legged on the floor beside Finn, reading aloud from a notebook. Then he stood up, no warning, just stood, stiff, and stared at the street like something had spoken to him. Lily looked up. "What is it, boy?" He took one step toward the door, then another, then ran. Out the bay, down the sidewalk. We shouted. Mason dropped the hose and took off. I was a step behind. Hill grabbed the truck and flanked us from the next street over. We didn't know what we were chasing. Only that Finn knew, and we couldn't let him go alone. He cut through 2 blocks, across an intersection, and into an alley we didn't recognize. Narrow, trashed, behind an old storefront we thought had been boarded up for months. Finn stopped at the end of it, barked once, then vanished through a crack in the back wall. I forced the door open. Dust and darkness, the smell of wet cement. Inside, an empty laundromat. Or so we thought. Then we heard it, a faint thump, like someone was knocking from under the floor. Basement? Hill said. I nodded, flashlight already in hand. We found the door behind the counter. It opened into a narrow staircase, half rotted. We went down slow, careful. Every step creaked like it might snap. Finn was already at the bottom, staring at a pile of collapsed drywall in the corner. We approached. Silence. Then a whimper from beneath the debris. We dug. Fast. Hill grabbed a crowbar. I cleared sheetrock. Mason yanked at a tarp covered in soot, and then a hand. Small. Pale. Then another. 2 children, one no older than 5, the other maybe 8, huddled under an overturned desk. Blankets. Empty water bottles, no adults. The older one clutched something. I leaned in closer. It was a broken leash. Bright pink, chewed through. The boy's voice was barely a whisper. He came back. He looked at Finn. He came back for us. Rachel arrived minutes later, along with medics. The kids were shaken, starved, dehydrated, but alive. And Finn? He didn't leave their side. Not when we carried them out. Not when the cameras showed up. Not even when their aunt arrived screaming and crying at once, hugging them like she'd never let go again. He stood like a statue between them, like he'd appointed himself guardian. And we let him, because he'd earned that right. Back at the station, the sun had dipped below the skyline, but inside the bay was lit gold. I found Finn lying by the lockers, his head on Lily's lap. She looked at me. Serious. He doesn't just hear cries for help, she said. He feels them. And for once, I didn't know what to say, because she was right. Finn didn't chase sirens, he was one. By the time word spread about the laundromat rescue, Finn had become more than a station dog. He was a legend. Local news covered the story, then regional, then national. Headlines ran with photos of him sitting calmly beside the children he found. Hero pup finds missing kids in abandoned building. Detroit's guardian dog, the fire station that got rescued by a puppy. But for us, it wasn't about fame. It was about the next shift. Because Finn didn't care about cameras. He didn't care about medals or features or names on plaques. He cared about the next person who needed him. That night, I came in early for the midnight rotation. I found Lily asleep on a cot near Finn. He was lying still, eyes half closed, but the second I stepped in, his ears lifted. He stood, walked over slow, limp still there but fading, and pressed his head into my leg. Not a greeting, a check-in. You're good, I whispered. You're on shift. The next morning, we had visitors. Not journalists, veterans. 3 guys in their 60s. One with a service dog, one in a wheelchair, one with burns that hadn't fully healed. They didn't say much. Just asked if this was the station with the dog who'd saved those kids. We nodded. They asked to meet him. Finn approached each one quietly, gently, nose low, tail soft, no barking, no bouncing. He moved like he understood. And when the vet in the chair reached out with a trembling hand, Finn pressed his head against it without hesitation. I've seen dogs do amazing things, the vet murmured. But this one, he's got soul. Later, after they left, the chief sat us down. Requests are pouring in, he said. Hospitals, schools, VA centers, everyone wants time with Finn. I looked down at him, lying by my boots. He's not a prop, I said. Exactly, the chief replied. He's a presence, and people need that right now. The next week, we adjusted his schedule. No more full-time fire shifts. Instead, something more powerful. Finn began visiting burn units, pediatric trauma centers, disaster survivor groups. Not to perform, just to be there, to breathe beside someone who couldn't, to sit beside someone who wouldn't speak, to remind them through silence that healing doesn't always look like recovery. Sometimes it looks like companionship. One day, at a school for kids with PTSD, a girl who hadn't spoken in months leaned in close and whispered into his ear. I know you're not just a dog. And she was right. He wasn't. He was a story, a symbol, a signal that no matter how far you fall, someone might still be out there, running with a broken phone in their mouth, bleeding feet, and a message that refuses to die. Help is coming. Because of Finn. Because of a choice he made when no one was watching. Because somewhere deep down, he decided one simple truth. If no one else would answer the call, he would. Finn's story didn't end with a rescue. It began with one. Because from the moment he limped to our firehouse with a shattered phone in his mouth, Finn wasn't just asking for help. He was bringing it. Again and again. Through smoke, through silence, through fear. He turned every scar into purpose. He didn't chase sirens. He became one. And in doing so, he reminded all of us, rescue is never just a moment. It's a decision. a responsibility, a second chance we choose to give and live. This little guy's journey from abandonment to rehabilitation shows how important nonprofit rescue groups really are, because sometimes the ones we save become the ones who save us. Caring for a rescued puppy is more than love. It's responsibility. It's presence. It's showing up even when it hurts. That's real pet care. If this story moved you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because every time someone hears about Finn, another door opens for a dog who's still out there, waiting to be found, waiting to be believed in. Join our Brave Paws family. Be their voice. Be their hope.